Welcome back from lunch. Now, this afternoon, our format will be a little different from usual. Mario and Michael will engage in a fireside chat with Michael asking questions. Both have connections to the city and specifically to our award-winning airport, judged among the nation's finest for 6 years in a row. The quality of our airport is due in no small measure to the leadership Mario has brought to the operation. An aviation expert with over 29 years of experience in the private and public sectors, Mario was appointed as the executive director of the Indianapolis Airport Authority in 2014. Prior to this position, Mario served at airports from Hong Kong to Palm Beach, all warm places. This includes his work as the deputy director at Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport, another warm place, where his leadership enabled the rapid recovery of the airport following Hurricane Katrina. He was later recognized for his expertise in environmental management with the prestigious Environmental Achievement Award from the Airports Council International. Mario also served as president of the California Airports Council, and he sits on the board of Airport Council International. He's an engineering graduate of the University of Miami, warm place again. He's also an accomplished author and speaker on issues affecting the aviation industry, including business recovery and disaster management. Michael Huber has been president and CEO of the Indy Chamber since 2013, a cold place. He leads efforts to serve the Indianapolis region's economic development strategy to unite and strengthen the metro economy. Michael has previously served as Senior Director of Commercial Enterprise at the Indianapolis Airport Authority, Deputy Mayor of Economic Development for the City of Indianapolis, Deputy Commissioner of the Indiana Department of Administration under former Governor Mitch Daniels, and as a member of the Associate Faculty of the School of Public and Environmental Affairs at IUPUI. And you may know that he has a 7-piece pop and R&B band called Chamber Music. Ironically, they don't even play chamber music, but it's called that. Now, if you want to know how good he is, you got to go to Hi-Fi February 16th. Michael received his MBA from Kelley School of Business at Indiana University, cold place, and a BS in social policy from Northwestern University, very cold place. Now, would you please join me in welcoming Mario and Michael for a hot conversation on a cold day?
Thank you. That was awesome. Now, did you hear that, Mario? Chancellor Padar just plugged my band. I was not expecting that at all. That was not. You
didn't pay him to do that?
No, I should have.
Yeah, you should have. He did a really good job.
Well, thank you. So it's a great honor to be here. I'm a little nervous. When Mario and I have done something like this in a couple of formats, but nowhere near an audience this large. So we'll try to keep it moving fast and keep it interesting. I know enough about this subject matter to be dangerous, as Chancellor said, because I spent exactly 1 year working for the Indianapolis Airport Authority as Senior Director of Commercial Enterprise before making the highly questionable decision to join the Indy Chamber 5 years ago. And the airport, I didn't appreciate before I worked there what an economic engine the airport is, and how interconnected it is to our regional and state economy. And so today what I want to do, I'm going to ask Mario a bunch of questions. We're going to take your questions in a little bit. And I want to ask you some questions, Mario, that really get behind the numbers. And some of them include 9 million passengers in 2018, a new record. Congratulations. We have 145 daily flights to 50 nonstop destinations, the most ever for our city and our region. $5.4 billion in total annual economic impact, a $1.5 billion investment by FedEx. I know you're supposed to talk and I'm supposed to ask the questions, but these are huge numbers, and I'd like to get behind the numbers this afternoon.
They're absolutely incredible numbers. And actually, before we start, I want to take a point of privilege and ask the incredible airport staff to stand up. They're all over the room, if you wouldn't mind standing. So you can and give them a round of applause. Because You know, I've worked in this business for over 30 years, and I've never been associated with such a professional staff. It's a
Great.
wonderful staff, and we're doing what we are doing because of their efforts. We've actually started looking at things differently. The airport, what's good for the airport is not just what's good for the airport. How can the airport serve all of you? That's our main focus. Our main focus is extracting the maximum amount of benefit from the airport and transferring it to the community. So that's why we looked at the route structure, and the route structure went from 33 nonstops to over 50.
Yep.
There was just recently an MIT study that indicated that of medium-sized airports, which we are, we're one of the best connected in the United States. As a matter of fact, one of the top 10. We're even better connected than my old airport, New Orleans. New Orleans has a lot more routes, but it's the quality of routes. We've been able to connect the tech sector on the West Coast fully. We've been able to connect all these wonderful sectors which you're so focused in on,
Right.
and we've been able to listen to the community, which you all needed, and we've been able to connect the United States to Europe. We've been able to connect different areas, and we're looking at much more international connections.
And I want to get our terms sort of straight, because I know this audience is made up of people who fly frequently and other people who maybe fly more rarely, you know, for leisure. Can you, before we get into the accomplishments and the growth in Indianapolis, I want to ask you to kind of paint a picture of what's happening in the market, because you know, even the casual traveler knows we've had a lot of merger and consolidation activity. You know, we're not a hub airport, but we are, I'd say, the best O&D airport in the country. Can you paint a picture of what's happening in the market?
To put it in big terms, there's two main type of airports. There are hub airports that basically, call it a spoke and hub sort of concept, that you have one main airline or a couple of airlines that bring all their passengers into the hub and then distribute it among all the United States and among the world. That's a great concept as long as your airline stays and makes sure that stays a hub. So in other words, if you look at different areas like Pittsburgh and different sort of areas that got dehubbed, it's catastrophic for the economy to have that happen. That can't happen to us.
Yeah.
We're an O&D airport, so origination and destination. All our passengers either come from the area or their final destination is here. So it's all, we've got a nice mix of airlines, so if we lose an airline, not that we don't care, it doesn't matter as much as if a hub airport dehubs. And right now the airlines, that's a really old model, the hub and the spoke model. And airlines are reducing the amount of hubs they have because of consolidation. So you're getting really a lack of capacity in the industry, and you're getting that sort of shrinkage in hub markets.
So it's like if you and I were having this conversation pre 9/11, I have to imagine we would have been saying, how could we be a hub like Cincinnati or Memphis hub? And those are two cities that are still feeling some very traumatic effects of getting dehubbed, right? Is that right?
Exactly. Look, you've got advantages and disadvantages in hubs, and I could sit here for hours and explain why an O&D market is better than a hub market, and it's better from everything from customer service, because our incredible staff could not deliver the world-class customer service we deliver now in a hub. Atlanta, for example, 6 out of 10 passengers are not from Atlanta. Their destination is not Atlanta. They probably don't even know they're in Atlanta. They're just changing airplanes.
Right.
So that type of volume mixed in with your passengers, your family members, your customers, your business partners, it makes it incredibly difficult for us to elevate the customer service and elevate the entrance that we're supposed to be. Now, and also, like I said before, if we have one reduction in airline, the void gets filled by the others, where you don't get that in a dehubbing situation.
So I know. I have thought a lot that you see the consolidation happening in the industry, which certainly wasn't helped by 9/11, and yet air service has increased at our airport, and again, the numbers don't lie. I know that some of this is due to what's happening with ultra low-cost carriers in the market, and unless I'm mistaken, we have benefited from that, right?
Oh, greatly. And, you know, we have Allegiant. And right now we brought in another airline, which is incredible. It's Spirit Airlines. Now, if anybody has ever flown Allegiant, Ryanair in Europe, you're going to figure out that it's really a low-cost, really ultra low-cost carrier. But let's forget about the terminology, because there's negatives that are associated with that. Let's look at how aviation has become more democratic as time goes on. All these models that are the hub and spoke models are old models. The new up-and-coming models are the ultra low-cost carriers, the Spirits, the Ryanairs in Europe. They're growing geometrically. Why? Because they're delivering what you want, a democratic way of flying. Way back when, and I don't know why these data points stick in my mind, way back when, back in the golden age of aviation, which, by the way, had some gold, but you needed a lot of gold to get on an airplane. Yeah. A round-trip flight, domestic flight, would cost you around, in 1949, 1950, about $300 round trip on the average. Equated to today's dollars, that's about $5,100.
Yeah.
Last year, round trip cost in the United States was $346. That was the average domestic trip. It's become a democratic way of flying. And Spirit, Allegiant for the travelers that are more vacation travelers, and Spirit and Ryanair, they've got it. They understand that. What the new generation wants is conveyance, and they want to do it in a cost-effective way, and they want it a la carte. They get it, they understand it, and they've hit the right buttons. Just look at their growth. Their growth is amazing. Some of us that experienced kind of like the interesting part of aviation way back when, kind of remember with some nostalgia that you used to get a meal on the airplane. I wouldn't eat that meal anyway, so, but that's besides the point. But right now, if you look at it, you can get across the country for practically nothing, where it was incredibly expensive before. So it really, that is the future of aviation. And if you don't think so, look at Southwest. That's the way they started.
Yeah.
They started as a laughable airline, and everybody sat around going, well, we're not flying them. Look at them now. That's Spirit.
Yeah. And I want to make the link there because, as I've learned from you, part of our success in attracting everybody, including the ultra low cost, has been the commitment to customer service. And again, I know it's going to sound like cheerleading, but the awards don't lie either. Airports Council International, Best Airport in North America, 6 years in a row. Conde Nast Traveler, Best Airport in America, 5 years in a row. There's having worked out there, it's been a few years with the outstanding team, there is a real discipline and commitment to having the best customer service. How do you sustain that? Because obviously every year you win the award, there are others gunning to supplant Indianapolis. Can you talk about that?
One of the things going back to the strategy, just go back, take a step back to the strategy. What we're looking at is we represent all of you. We work for all of you to a certain degree. And we've been studying this for year after year after year, how things deteriorate is basically complacency. We're not complacent. We look at the facility, we look at what we do, we change what we do, we question the status quo, and we continuously question the status quo. And I tell this story, I know the staff is going to go, oh, Jesus, again, he's going to tell the story. But do you truly believe that the New York, New Jersey Port Authority, the heads of the New York, New Jersey Port Authority sat around and talked about screwing up your travel experience with LaGuardia? No, they didn't. It just happened. Mm-hmm. They had a great facility at one point. They just let it sit there and deteriorate slowly and didn't do anything. Right now, from the time the terminal was open, and John Kish is here somewhere, the builder of the terminal, we've continuously improved the terminal. We have the fastest, arguably the fastest Wi-Fi in any airport in the United States, and it's all free, and there's no splash page. We're changing the seating. We're putting electrical systems on every seat so you could actually charge your devices. Changing some of the seats to lounge seating. So if you go to the end of the concourses, you'll see lounge seating, similar to what we're sitting on right now. more comfortable seating. We're changing the concessions, which is actually very fascinating because we're looking at concessions in two ways. One, that we have to deliver a sense of place, something truly Indianapolis and Indiana, and something that is of high quality, but we also have to deliver an economic impact to the local community. So most of the sourcing will be done locally. A lot of the restaurants that you see around more restaurants will be coming into the airport, and that sort of feel that you've landed in Indiana is going to be, you're going to experience that at the airport.
When you talk about economic impact, there's a connection that I certainly didn't make until I had the opportunity to work for the IAA between economic impact and what has allowed us to build this beautiful and maintain this beautiful facility. A lot of our design professionals, construction firms who spent years designing and building it are here today. And that simply, I'm going to say, is to say cargo is vastly underrated. And our status as the second biggest cargo airport in FedEx presence and cargo airport in North America is really underrated. And I think because a lot of us fly commercial, we don't always, when we see FedEx planes take off and land, we don't really think about the impact or what that's allowed us to do with the terminal. Do you agree?
That's extremely valid. Everybody takes cargo for granted. But when you push that button on the computer and a package mysteriously appears on your front door, it probably is FedEx bringing it around. Right now, we're the second largest FedEx hub. FedEx is growing geometrically. The terminal, for example, the building of the terminal was $1.3 billion plus or minus. Right now, between FedEx and the IAA, our expansion is nearing $2 billion. So you can't see it because most of it is underground in what we call flat work. But Memphis, which is the largest hub FedEx has, and it's the largest cargo carrying airport by volume in the United States, you can't build anymore. They're done. We will match FedEx, the Memphis hub, within the next 5 years. And we will probably become the largest, busiest cargo airport in the United States within the next 15. So that,
And that's where, it's like we throw around these numbers about anything, about whether it's economic development or sports, and I don't think we sometimes think about the magnitude, but, a $1.5 billion investment currently by FedEx in their expansion. Congratulations, by the way.
Absolutely.
I don't know if this is still true. I remember in my year, there was the year that I was there, the budget year, and Robert Thompson and the team do a great job presenting the budget. FedEx paid more in landing fees than all the passenger airlines combined in that year. Is that still the case?
That's still the case. And,
wow, okay.
And we expect it to grow.
So that's FedEx. So thank you, FedEx, wherever you are.
Well, not only that, it's not only the long-term jobs that FedEx creates, and they will, and as things get more and more automated, jobs change from manual labor to more technical jobs and higher-end jobs. It also, and I'm just an engineer, but it also deals with a bunch of construction work. The $1.5 to $2 billion in concrete means a lot of job, means a lot of economic development, and there's a lot of ripple effect from that. And we've grown our capital program, which it needed to grow, from basically $24 million a year. Last year, we pumped into the economy, we invested into the airport $102 million. This year, we expect to invest $220 million. So that creates a lot of jobs, and it creates a lot of capacity for all of you at our airport.
And then, because the airport, there are 10,000 people that work on airport, I guess, and then the calculation for all those people whose jobs are generated by the airport is almost 23,000.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's true that the logistics industry is becoming so much more automated, but a lot of times, I can speak for myself and our organization, we need to take into account all of the companies that want to be in our market, specifically in the west side and west suburbs, just to be near the second biggest cargo hub in the world.
Absolutely. It's becoming a little bit more automated. And talking about FedEx, obviously, they're aiming at more automation.
Yeah.
But you can't automate the flight crews.
Right.
Yet. You've got flight crews. You've got technical people. You've got logistics people. This actually is a great thing for Indiana.
Yeah, so air service has obviously been a huge push. As I mentioned, the increase in passengers, the increase in destinations. Just in the last 5 years, we've restored service to SFO. We have the new nonstop Paris flight, and a big shout out to Governor Eric Holcomb and the IEDC. We as a chamber are privileged to work with Mayor Joe Hogshead, and it's a true team effort making all that come together. Can you talk about, so I know sometimes air service gets increased because the market is expanding. I think we've kind of worked against the grain to create air service to some of these markets working together. Is that?
To a certain degree, it's a combination of technical and art. So, and big shout out to, again, I've been working in this business for 30 years and I've never seen this type of collaboration between the state, the city, the chamber, and this is what actually gives us a leg up on others. Now, most would perceive air service marketing as, hey, if there's money to be made, the airline will come. Actually, for some degree, you've got to sell the airlines, because way back when, airlines had huge staffs, internal staffs that would look at all the airports and all the markets. They don't anymore. They depend on the airports to actually feed them information and literally sell your market, because, and I don't know if you've heard this weird term, it's called capacity discipline. There's a certain amount, what the airlines mean by that in a weird way is like, your planes are going to be full. If you've experienced a full plane recently, get used to it. They're going to reduce capacity, make sure they put their aircraft in the maximum, where it yields the maximum amount of dollars. We've got to prove to them that our market is better than somebody else's. And we do that not only because of us, we do that because of the governor, the mayor, the chamber. I mean, it's a collaborative effort to bring them on board. And we were able to do that with Paris, for example. And the backstops are only part of it. The amount of money that we offer them as a backstop is only part of the money. For example, I think the flight to Paris was about $2 million for a backstop per year. Deployment of that type of flight by an airline is about $80 million. So you could see that if we don't prove to them that you're going to make money, you cannot buy a flight.
Right.
You could get to the top of the list by providing some sort of guarantee that they're going to yield some sort of revenue, but you cannot buy the flight. So, I would applaud all of you, because we're doing it because of all of you. The market is good over here. It's something to sell. We can't sell something that doesn't exist. We're selling something that exists right here.
Actually, while we have all of you in this room, this is a great opportunity. So Mario's right, definitely on SFO and on the Paris nonstop flight, the community saw demand where the airline at that time did not. The state, thank you, Governor, IEDC, put an incentive together that basically said, we'll guarantee certain volumes if the volumes aren't met. Luckily, the volumes have been met in almost every case. The local partners work with Mario, the chamber, certainly the mayor's office, to drum up support for that, basically to show the airlines that there is demand with, Lilly, Salesforce. So my point is, if you see that new nonstop service has been established, we would ask you to please take that flight.
Absolutely.
While you're all
Great.
here.
Yeah.
Because the more demand that we show, so if I'm dead serious. If it's like $30 or $40 extra, Mario and I would very much appreciate it if you would take that flight. And another
Talk to your internal travel people and make sure that you fly direct, please.
And here's another thing. I used to say direct flight. The correct term,
Non-stop.
if it's point to point, is actually we should be saying nonstop.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Direct is like, if you've ever been on a Southwest flight that got to a final destination and somewhere in the middle you kind of stopped and they said, don't get out of your seat because that's a direct flight.
Yeah.
And not a nonstop.
Yeah, right. So nonstop.
A little difference.
So speaking of which,
Love the
huge
airlines.
announcement last month on this Routes 2020 conference. I'll be honest. Before the announcement, and you told me about it, and others, I didn't know a lot about it. But we know it's in this year. It's in Quebec City. A significant direct and looks like a huge long-term impact. Can you share with the audience why Routes 2020 conference, to have it here in Indianapolis for the first time, is so important?
Routes 2020 is probably one of the most significant conferences for us to have in the aviation industry and for all of you for nonstops. Why? Because it gathers about 350 decision makers from airlines here. It's very difficult to convey what this place is, or what the feel is of Indianapolis and Indiana to people that haven't been here. It gives us a home field advantage when it comes to marketing these airlines year after year after year. They've been here, they've seen it, they've seen how an incredible convention city this is, how connected this is. They've seen the population, so it becomes a lot easier to make that connection in the market later on.
That's great. And I guess I'm picturing, I'm picturing all these network planners from airlines and all these representatives from airports
Absolutely.
around the world. It's almost like you talking about the collaboration, which you're making us feel good that the collaboration is at a real high here in Indianapolis. I'm just imagining the opportunity for all these people to connect the dots.
That basically is the meaning behind this. The chamber, Visit Indy, and everybody worked very hard to get this conference here.
Yeah.
The governor had had some of the conference basically schedulers on the first Paris flight, and he hosted them. It's extremely important to bring those folks here. It's the same thing as the Meeting Planners International for Visit Indy.
Yeah.
It's extremely important to get them familiarized with Indy, and that way I don't have to sell Indy. Indy sells itself.
Yeah.
When we have them here, it'll sell themselves, and then the only thing we have to do is sell them on the numbers.
So at this time, we still have a few minutes left. You should feel free to submit questions at the cards on your table, and some of our friends will be collecting those cards if you have questions.
If we don't like them, we won't answer it.
We'll get through as many as we can. One thing, Mario, on this issue of where aviation intersects with economic development. Again, I hate to reflect on my own experience, but in my year at the airport back at the end of 2012, 2013, we would look at properties like the old airport parking lots, and we had, I was working with Marcia and Eric Anderson and the great team out there, and kind of dream up different uses. And I have to say, the INFOSYS development is beyond my wildest dreams of anything I could have dreamed up. And so, congratulations to you, the governor, and the mayor. Was this something that was in the works for a long time, and did you see it going to the airport? Can you talk about that?
In general, airports are extremely good nationwide at buying properties because of noise concerns,
Yeah.
fencing them, securing them, and then they don't know what to do with them. So what we did is we took an objective look at how much property we owned, and like I said, part of it, and a big part of it is making sure that we work for you. And we heard it loud and clear. The population wants that piece of land, or the lands that we're not using and we won't use for aviation, back on the tax rolls. That was loud and clear. So that's what we did. We took 3,200 acres, and I'm here to report that most of it is already back on the tax rolls or on its way.
Yeah.
So all those 3,200 acres that we would never use for aviation, we put back into a program that includes the INFOSYS area.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
And INFOSYS is going to be fantastic for the West Side. It'll be transformative because all of those high-paying jobs will transform the West Side of Indianapolis.
That's and another thing. This is so basic, but while we've got everybody in the room, the airport gets no property tax dollars, no local tax dollars. The airport is supported by the revenues that we talked about generated by the business you attract. Is that right?
We generate every dollar. There's no tax dollars, but don't be fooled. That's all public monies. It's your facility. So everything we generate, and we generate from the airlines, and we generate from all of you, from parking, from everything that happens at the airport, goes back into investing back into the community. There are certain, federal regulations that we can't sidestep, but we try to invest those monies to make the airport, make your experience at the airport, and make the community better.
So I've received over 20 questions from the audience, and so I'm trying to group them together to be as responsive as possible. I think one question that we've received a few different times are other nonstop destinations, okay, domestic and international, are right now. I remember that we can measure where people are going every day, and we kind of know.
Yeah, we could track
everything.
where people are going.
Right.
It's not yeah, it is Big Brother, but we know exactly where you're going, where your final destination. Even if you go through a hub or something, we know exactly where you're going.
Yeah. Are there
yeah.
any just either that we're zeroing in on or ones that are of interest to you?
Let's
right
talk
now?
about the big picture. You know, we decided a while ago to look at things strategically and even look at air service strategically. So we're focusing in on some areas. Domestically, we've probably hit all the domestic markets that were underserved. Now we're looking at the drive markets, the ones that you drive to that we could probably get a 50-passenger aircraft in there for. So we're talking to different airlines that'll be able to supply. In other words, we can't put an aircraft that carries 150 passengers into a 50-passenger destination. It doesn't work. The math doesn't work. So we're looking at different airlines, regional airlines that will be able to serve that. Now, the bigger ones are, we're focusing in a little bit more on Latin America, basically Mexico. We're looking in Mexico City. Mexico City is a wonderful launching pad that could handle back traffic into Latin America. So not only is can it handle Mexico itself, it can handle back traffic into Latin America. We're also looking at long term. This is a longer term. Mexico City is closer in, but longer term is Asia Pacific. So we're looking at a Hong Kong route. Hong Kong, I worked in Hong Kong, Japan route. So a Tokyo route. So that would be sort of our focal points for now.
And I grouped several questions together about air service, including one of our friends who really wants to see nonstop to Sacramento. We'll do it now. But I think,
something strange. My wife is also in the business, and she used to run part of the Sacramento Airport Authority.
That's right.
So
Monica.
that would have been nice to actually fly back and forth.
That's another conversation. Mario's wife Monica has had a fascinating career leading airports as well. When you meet her, really a very diverse career. But the bottom line is, again, for the audience, we can measure that daily demand, and I guess as we continue to work with you and with the governor and the mayor, we're correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at those markets where there's existing demand and maybe there's not service, but there's a small enough gap that we could fill the gap via incentive or marketing. Is that accurate?
That's the perfect description. We're looking at those markets so we can actually get over the hump.
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions about Old Airport, how the expansion will affect the west side of Indianapolis, and I'm not an authority on this, and I'd throw it to you. I mean, I think there are some things that are known about suppliers that might attract, but then there's been a lot of visioning by the local partners as well. What would you say about that?
Well, going back to INFOSYS, remember FedEx produces jobs. INFOSYS will produce a large amount of jobs and a high-paying jobs. So that should be a catalyst for change, positive change on the west side of Indianapolis. When you have all that amount of jobs concentrated in one area.
We have two questions about. One is one word or one sentence that you would say to the world, this is Indianapolis. And this goes back to, you've lived in New Orleans, Southern California, internationally, but I am interested. I mean, your perceptions of this place, and not just the positive. I mean, be honest. I mean,
look, it's difficult to describe in one word.
Difficult to describe.
It's difficult to describe in one word. Indianapolis, my wife and I have been amazed. We've been charmed by Indianapolis, and mostly charmed by all of you. You have an incredible amount of warmth. Now it's cold as heck over here. I like to say the farthest north I lived in my adult life is Long Beach, California. So this is kind of a shock to me, but really, this is the best place I've ever lived, the best place my wife has ever lived. You guys are truly, truly, genuinely nice. We lived in New Orleans, and people were just trained to be nice in New Orleans. Over here, people are really genuinely nice, and that's what gives us a leg up when it comes to customer service. Mm-hmm. And I love a conversation with my wife when she was working for the Houston Airport Systems, that she was training her folks to say good morning and good afternoon and good evening. You don't have to, most people go, wow, is that real? Yeah, that's real. So you don't have to do that here. People are genuinely nice, and we've been fascinated by living here. So
we have a request for a nonstop to Mumbai or Bombay. Mm-hmm. Can we make that happen?
Tomorrow we'll do that.
From Twitter. I do feel like it's a good question. In addition, there's a good question about asking you to expand more about why an international flight is so important for our state and our region for business and beyond. I mean, I think that the Paris flight is a bigger deal than I think I even appreciated.
It's a huge deal. Paris is huge, and it's not huge for the reasons you think. Because right now, for example, Leonard Hoops with Visit Indy, who's a fantastic leader of that organization. Now we could sell conventions better. You just need one. You need one connection. Your first connection is your most important connection. Now we're connected to Europe. First time Indianapolis has been connected to Europe. Now, we've had international flights before, but all of you don't know we had international flights because no one really registers Mexico, the Dominican Republic, and several other areas, and Canada is international. But this, really, the optics behind having a direct flight to Paris is amazing. So that's a sellable point, and it has an economic impact associated with bringing passengers back and forth, but it has the optics behind it far exceed the economic impact. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to sell businesses better to this region, and it allows the governor to attract more businesses into this region, and so on and so forth, and just build on the success.
Couple questions. Mm-hmm. When you and I know you and I get together, and it's almost like we're talking about how great Indianapolis is, as we should. We want people to know that. But I think there's a couple questions. The way I would summarize them is biggest areas of risk. Like, what are those risks? Things that could happen in the market that could be detrimental, and how we mitigate those things. Because obviously this market is always changing. Okay. What are risk areas that keep you up at night? For us, this is going to be unusual. So bear with me, and I'll explain what our biggest risk is. Our biggest risk as an authority is doing something stupid, considering an outside force. For example, aviation has been growing here for the last 40 years. Our main job is to support you. Our main job is not to react like the private sector. And to a certain degree, our responsibility is to react, to a certain degree, counter, to try to balance out a private sector. So in other words, if there's an economic downturn here, we can't contract our efforts. We have to multiply our efforts to try to underpin the economy over here. That's our responsibility. So in other words, if we were to contract the economy, if the economy contracts, which it will eventually, there'll be a correction in the economy, should we stop our efforts in air service marketing? Should we stop building? Should we defer maintenance? And the answer is probably not. We're not the private sector. We're here to help you, and we're here to work for you. So our job is to make sure that we make the economy better regardless of what outside factors are happening. I don't know if that makes any sense. Two questions really combined that are about sustainability. I mean, I'm really proud of, we're still the largest on-airport solar farm in the country.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that right? And the commitment to sustainability and renewable energy?
Oh, absolutely. And it comes back from, all of it has one focal point, and it's public value. We represent all of you. So right now we have the largest solar arrays on any airport. It produces more energy than any other airport, clean energy. We have the largest electric bus fleet in any airport. Thank you, federal government, for 50% of the cost. So and we've got a LEED certified terminal. Thank you to John Kish. We've got several things that actually make us more environmentally sustainable. And we counterbalance the bad we do in the environment by doing all these good things.
It's a question about more local coffee shops in the airport. I think people should probably look at your retail project now, like getting more local companies in. Is that something?
Yeah, there's more local coffee. There's more local products. People are sourcing locally. That's what we insisted on, that our concessionaires source more and more local. So you're going to see a lot more of the products that you're used to seeing.
These educational partnerships are really, really important, and growing the presence of Vincennes and Purdue, IUPUI, other universities, because and just what I saw, everything's becoming more automated. Certainly aviation is becoming more automated. Logistics is becoming more automated. Do you see a future in continuing to grow the presence of universities on the on airport?
Absolutely. And actually, the governor and the mayor have been leaders in this, along with Republic Aviation and AAR and Vincennes. You've probably heard there's a pilot shortage out there. There was, a lot of the pilots are coming to the end of their career and they have a deadline. So at 65 years old, you can't fly any more commercial. Your ticket is pulled. Mm-hmm. It's simple as that. So you can't extend the life of a pilot beyond 65 years old. So the airlines, what they're doing, especially Republic, it's a brilliant sort of move. And I know Cal is somewhere back there with our baseball team. If you compare it to the minor leagues, they're creating a training ground for pilots, which they'll put into the regional airlines, and then eventually those regional airline pilots will go into the major airlines, the ultra low cost, the hub and spoke, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in the meantime, they'll have accessibility to that, and they can fly the aircraft, and Republic will have their planes flying, which right now they're in danger of not having flying because there's not enough volume of pilots being created to keep the fleet going. And it's not a static fleet. Remember, last year, and not that people take aviation for granted. You don't have to think about it deeply. Mm-hmm. But last year, the United States, internationally and nationally, moved about 1 billion passengers. 1 billion passengers. If you take into consideration the population of the United States, that's almost triple the population of the United States. So it really is, it's the mode of transportation. And unless, Elon Musk figures out a way to beam us across the country, it's going to be an expanding field. So this is expanding while the volume of people that are running it are staying the same and dwindling. So you've got, not only do you have the problem that all of you have with workforce, it multiplies because the field itself is expanding geometrically.
So, really good question about the status and the plans of the old airport, and I can kind of picture the maps in my mind. The old airport parking lots, that's mostly a lot of INFOSYS.
That's INFOSYS.
Yeah. So in terms of beachfront property, there's still a lot of real estate from the old airport that is in play for economic development. Is that?
But when it comes to anything that's attached, call it waterfront property. When it comes to anything that's attached to a runway, to an airfield within a proximity, we're going to use it for aviation development. Simply put, because once you give away that waterfront property, you can't take it back. Mm-hmm. And if you give it for something that doesn't need waterfront property, we're kind of not doing our job. Our job is economic development to a certain degree, but we want to make sure that that waterfront property is sort of used for that purpose.
Mm-hmm. This is not in the cards. Okay. Could Indy surpass Memphis as a cargo airport?
Yeah, probably in the next 15 years.
How would we do that?
Keep growing, keep putting air. Memphis, the interesting part about Memphis, and it's all about numbers. Memphis has built out every square inch they can. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of area to go. We've got a whole area on the other side of the freeway that you could build a third parallel runway. You could build aprons. Honestly, the sky's the limit with this airport.
That's great. I know that Chancellor Padar, I covered a lot of his questions, but one of them, which he asks frequently, because I'm fortunate to come to these economic club luncheons, is there's one thing, one concept, or one challenge to this audience that you would want them to remember regarding the airport or the economic impact of aviation. What would that be?
Yeah, what's interesting, what I'd like everybody to remember is that, and I'm going to fumble for words here because I want to make sure that we get it. So I want to make sure that you're not detached from your asset. I want to make sure that the audience understands that this is your asset. And we're here to work for you. We're not here to work for the airport. The airport is here to work for you and make the economy better and make the area better. So if anything that the group sees that we need to do, the only thing you need to do is point it out. Raise your hand, point it out. Our job is to make sure that your lives are progressively better through what we do.
And how can they do that? I know the social media accounts at the airport are very active. And we have a question about the general public making suggestions to improve the airport.
Social media, we have a deep connection to the community through different organizations. The staff sits on different boards. chamber boards, we have people that visit Indy, anything we could do to make your businesses better and your lives better in Indianapolis, let us know.
Mario, I just want to say, this is the 4th time we've done this, and
Yeah.
thank you. I want to thank the Economic Club, but I also want to congratulate Chancellor Nassler Paydar
most
on the
definitely.
50th birthday of IUPUI that we recently
Congratulations.
celebrated. So, thank you.
Michael, thank you. Is this on? Thank you so much for a wonderful program. Thank you what you do on a daily basis at the chamber and at the airport. Give them another round of applause.
Thank you.
Today's presentation will be available as a podcast at wfyi.org. Please join us next month on Monday, March 11th, as we hear from former Vice Chairman of the Board of Governors of the U.S. Federal Reserve System and now TIAA President and CEO Roger Ferguson. Have a wonderful and warm afternoon. Thank you.